Okie dokie, folks. Well, in the last video, we got to the point where we had Akari struggling with the ninja, and if this is actually the YouTube video, so you can see. And we got the ink and paint done, and then I committed the cardinal sin, and the cardinal sin is to be carrying along, making some additions to the scene, and then switching over to here, which had Blender open to view the edit, and I realized that I had forgotten to switch the screen back and was blathering on like an idiot for who knows how long with the wrong screen showing. It happens. So let's do a quick recap. What I did was I took the previous scene, which essentially is this. Okay. And it consists of quite a bunch of layers. And then what I did was I made a copy of this group and then muted it. And then I applied a transform mask, which is add transform mask, so that this entire layer with all of its constituent animation keys could just be moved. And then I actually did image, resize the canvas, and I resized the canvas to be 2000 pixels wide. And that way, what we'll be able to do is basically this. Let's just go into full screen mode and look at this way. Okay, so it'd be kind of like this is what you're seeing, and then at the right time, actually it'd probably be more like, well, it'd be somewhere between those two actually, in terms of the size. But at the right time it would pan over so that we would see this, we would see Zen come into the screen, and then everything else that belongs in the shot would happen. So that's what we're going to use Blender for. Now, I had a choice. I could have taken this sequence, pulled that into Blender, and then handled everything else separately. And that's not necessarily a bad approach, but I felt that because, well, first of all, it's a little bit clunky to do keyframe interpolation in Blender on 2s or 3s. So that means that, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. In anime, what you find usually is that special effects and camera moves tend to be on 1s. Different kinds of action will be on 1s and 2s, but most of your anime movement is really on 3s. So Akari here, when she's struggling around, she's on 3s for the most part. Okay, Zen's approach is on 3s. So what I decided was, let's kind of do this the way Ed Tadeo would do it, which is just use a bigger canvas in Krita, and then bring this whole thing in as an image sequence into Blender and just animate the camera move. Okay, so that's kind of what I decided to do. Now I probably will render this out as an alpha channeled image sequence so that the background remains transparent, and that way I could put in a slight camera move in the y-axis in Blender to get a little bit of parallax, and at the same time be able to just keep the background on a completely separate layer. So now, given that that's our strategy, I need to look at the original edit and try not to make the same mistake I made before, which is to not switch back to the other view. But as we look at this, what we want to do is look at the timing here. So now we're at this place right here. Boom. Okay, their eyes pop open. And then the question is, what happens next? Okay, it's about 16 frames to clunk their heads together. But one thing I did notice which I think is probably well advised to follow in this new version of it, is that, and by the way, I should probably show this as well. You grab this Control Shift Insert, which causes it to be, which is the same on your machine as show in timeline, causes the layers to always show in the timeline no matter what. Pretty useful most of the time. All right, I'm going to do that to this too. So now all 4 of these layers are going to show in the timeline. Okay. So what I noticed was that when these guys get surprised right there, there's actually a expansion of their eyes, and then it settles back down a little bit. So let's go ahead and put that in there. Okay, and this guy needs to be in the timeline as well. This probably needs to not be in the timeline. Okay. And remember, save early, save often. Just a few minutes ago, literally just a few minutes ago, I was humming along and had Krita blow up on me. Okay, so what's going on here is if I take this copy of Ninja and click it off, through the beginning section of the animation, these 2 guys are baked together into a single layer. Now, in the original, more complex stack of layers, they weren't. And I had even mentioned, I think I mentioned it yesterday while I was creating the video that I wound up having to throw away, that invariably, if you bake things down into a single layer, the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to realize you needed them separated back out again, and that is indeed what happened here. So what happens is, at the point that Zen shows up and puts his hands around these guys' heads, obviously this guy needs to be on a separate layer from Akari so that he can be animated separately, because her look really doesn't change during their motion of getting their heads cracked together. So what I did was I just took this one pose from the previous stack of layers, so that what's really going on here is that this frame, this ninja, disappears from the shot with Akari, and then just this pose alone is on a new layer. Okay, so what I was going to say is that these guys seem to have their reaction and then their eyes settle down. So I'm going to show that here in a moment. Let's go to Ninja 5 first, which is this guy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this. I'm just going to copy this frame. And obviously this is really nothing more than a guide, because this is going to be used later for, we have to do the ink and paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch this down, stretch this up. Let's do a little bit of the old stretchy poo. Okay, that's fine. Done. Now I'm going to go to this guy, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now it's a little cheese ball that their eye animation is in perfect sync. But you know what? I mean, that's kind of half the fun. So that's all I wanted to do. So that now, when you play this back, there's a pop open, and then it settles. Whoops, what's going on? Okay, so that works. Good deal. And now, as I said, there was about a 16 frame window. Let's go back here and just take a look. Because I really feel like when I did this shot originally, I don't like the characterization, but I do like the timing. I think the timing was pretty good. So there's their reaction. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep, 12. And then we've got 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to go 12 frames ahead, and then we're going to then the motion begins. That means we need to take these guys. We're on 52, so let's go to what would it be, 64? Let's go to 64. So that's just giving us a little bit of a pause, and then we're going to have 3 keys. I'm going to just do it this way. According to what I just saw, and I just did it again, by the way, but I didn't fortunately do it long enough to be a big problem. Okay, so what you just missed was I just took these 2 keys that I just created of their reaction, and then I copied these keys over to here so that we have a 12 frame gap, and then we're going to have 1, 2, 3 keys getting their heads clunked together. Now let me just go back here, and I'll try not to forget again. So the idea is this. Okay, there's key 1, and it's on 3s. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then from there, those guys kind of slide down into oblivion. So let's correct this right now. We can grab these two, hit Shift, and then I'm going to hit Alt. I'm going to pick this up and move it down one frame. And the Alt key in Krita, it's one of the good things about working with animation in Krita. As deficient as it is in a lot of ways, it is nice that you can ripple edit your keys. So I must say. Okay, so it looks to me that like what happened was they start moving, and essentially they're bouncing apart. For all intents and purposes, you never actually see them clunked together. Frankly, I don't like that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down 2, and I'm going to add an extra key on 2s right here. Whoops. So that's a copy. Okay, so why am I doing that? Because what I'm going to do is, first of all, let's get these guys in motion. So Ninja 5. We're going to go to a standard. Okay. And let's just go ahead, and I think for this we could actually cheat a little bit by just doing that. Okay. So now let's go to this guy, which is Ninja 5, and here, so he's going from here to that situation right there. Okay. Now what I just decided was I'm going to go ahead and smash them together. And why don't we do it this way? Let's grab this, just grab his head, and kind of angle it like that. Okay. And then we'll grab the whole thing and push it to the center. Alright, we're not going to worry about Zen's hands right now. That doesn't matter too much. Okay, so now here, and by the way, you can't just click on the key. You have to select it here, or else it isn't really selected in Krita, which is kind of a silly thing, but that's alright. Okay, so I'm going to pop that over there, and I'm going to do the same thing I just did, and then we'll just patch it up and clean it up after the fact. Even though this has been inked and painted, it's going to be really easy to fix. So I'm going to smash their heads together right there, and then what I'm actually going to do is copy this key so I can then kind of bounce these guys off of each other like that. Okay, so let's go back to Ninja 5 like that. Okay, and then let's look at how much distortion we have. Yeah, in terms of sharpness, we are losing a little, so it probably would be prudent to take this key. Let's go to copy of Ninja, and let's copy this to here. Hit the A key, and then we're going to let him straighten back out. So that's fine. Okay. And this guy, kind of the same situation. We're going to let him straighten out. So now what we should see is their heads kind of popping together. Shh. Okay, and we need to lengthen our shot. Right now we're set to only 60. Let's do this. Let's make our life easier. Let's start at, in the other screen, what I'm doing is I'm switching my start frame to 42, and then let's just go up to 90 and see how that feels. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Boom. And then they'll fall. Okay, and I think we can worry about putting Zen's hands in there later. So now I'm going to go ahead and set my start frame back to 0 so that we can just kind of watch the whole thing. Boom. I like it. Boom. Okay. So now, in the original version of this, what I did was, we'll just kind of scribble this in like that. And let's go to this guy, and we'll do the same thing here, which is we're just going to go like that. His eyes are just going to be kind of squinted. Remember, this is only on the screen for quite literally 2 frames, so this goes by really, really fast. Okay, and so as long as we're here, let's go ahead and patch this up. That's pretty easy to fix. And I'm going to go here in my layers and just, yeah, see, I'm seeing a lot of garbage from the sketch layer. That's okay. So copy of Ninja, and then Ninja 5. Again, that's really needs to be erased. Okay, and then here I would say, let's do that. Now what did I do over here? I want to look and see if yeah, I did. Okay, so here for this guy, what I actually did on this frame was switched it so that now I don't like that one. Okay. And then this guy, Ninja 5, basically what happened was he went cross-eyed. So let's just do it this way. Let's just go like that. Okay. So I'm just switching to the eraser. Okay, that should be pretty close to right. Boom. Yeah. Boom. Okay, the only complaint I would have would be here. I think this, obviously this needs to be patched up as well, but I think that he should go cross-eyed actually on this frame, not the, he shouldn't go back to his normal eyes. So let's just paint these guys out, and then we'll do our best to draw the cross-eyed look in a way that gives us some continuity. Whoops. What do we got going here? Okay. That should be pretty good. And again, as long as I'm here, let's go ahead and just patch that up. Let me just see if there's anything else that needs patching. Okay, there's that sort of indication of his arm. Okay. And his arm doesn't, his hand doesn't actually slip down, I think, until, well, the way I did the shot before, actually you don't see the ninja's hand anyway. So it's conceivable that this will actually be cropped out in the final edit, but we'll see. I don't have to decide that right now. So I'm going to save my work, just see how this is feeling. Yeah. Okay. So now let's go here and see what we have. Okay, so that's Zen's hands, and I think what we should do, let's just call this Zen. And since we're naming things, let's call this Akari. We'll call this Ninja 4. even though he is actually baked into the Akari layer through, well, about half the shot. Okay, and the reason I did that is I want to have another layer called Zen Hands. And right here is where we want to deal with Zen's hands. Okay, so now for my purposes here, I'm going to erase. There's no point in having that in there. And I guess the main decision we have to make here is, do we want to bring Zen out of the shadows or not? My sense is that we don't. My thinking is that I want to... Let's go ahead and fix up Zen right now. Okay. And the way we'll do it is, let's just pick a gray. Pick a gray, any gray. And let's just do this as a silhouette. As long as we can see someone approaching, that tells us what we need to know. And it's perfectly fine for him to be mostly hidden behind Ninja number 5. Okay, we want to make sure we give him kind of a bull neck. I mean, Zen's a hefty dude. Okay, so we're just gonna hand animate this on 3s. Getting a little out of control there with the shoulder. That's okay. So, of course, this is one of those examples where you think, well, wouldn't it be easier to create the drawing of Zen one time and then just animate it with you know, the animation tools in OpenTunes or Blender, like the possibly the plastic tool, possibly just taking that one drawing and mapping it to a plane. The thing is, if there's one thing I've learned over and over with animation, it is that the fast way is the slow way and the slow way is the fast way. So at the end of the day, the time I'm taking right now to just draw these frames and hand tool the animation, if I'd gone through the process of just taking one drawing and rigging it and trying to do it that way, it's very debatable whether it would save me any time at all. At the end of the day, it would probably be kind of a wash. So what I find more and more often is I favor simply drawing the animated cells, you know, kind of going microscopic, you might say. Really just get in there and do it frame by frame and just check the timing, check the feel. And at the end of the day, I seem to be getting better results when I work that way. So for me, I want to be pragmatic. I don't care. I just want to get the result that looks and feels good, you know. So here, again, silhouette. So what I think I'm going to do here is And by the way, I'm deferring on his hair. I'm gonna put in the detail. I'm gonna use a smaller brush and fix the details of his hair. After a fashion, as Bilbo Baggins would say. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take his hand and just lighten it and tint it with a little bit of flesh tone. And remember, this doesn't matter until we get to the point where we need to use this layer and put Zen's hands here, which is after they well, it'll be this frame right here. That frame right there is where we're gonna, and I may decide to go back here and tweak a couple more frames here of his hands in order to make that color change a little bit more of a gradual transition. But we don't have to decide that right now. To redraw those hands is going to take 30 seconds max, so no big deal. Okay. Looks like that's, yeah, we'll just paint him in there. Okay, and there's the shot with his hands. So what we're going to do here is we're going to basically freeze Zen's body. And we can always add a filter mask to tint. If we want to take this whole layer that's all just this shade of gray, and we want to go ahead and modify the color so it, so we get a better contrast or whatever. We can always do that anytime we want. Okay, so now, probably goes without saying that he should be behind everybody else, like so. Okay, and his hand should be in front of everybody else. So now, let's go here to Zen, and what we're going to do is just go back to the default settings on this brush so that we can go in and just kind of polish up the hair. Okay, I just realized I made kind of a critical strategic error, which is that all the sketches are still in there, so that's fine. We'll paint them out. So let's go with a little bigger brush, and we'll just paint them out. We'll just tighten up those edges like that. No big deal. Okay, so now I'm going to take the two ninjas for the moment and actually take everything and turn it off, because I want to be able to see the sketch material that needs to be erased. So now, granted, some of this might actually be behind the other ninja, and so technically it doesn't need to be erased, but meh, we'll just play her safe. Okay. Step back here. Yeah, and we'll just clean this up. I should have put this on a separate layer, but truthfully, it's just not that big of a deal. Boom. Okay, and here we want to go like that. Get his hair in there. And then once we've got it all blocked in, we'll just play it back and make sure things are looking good. So, those of you who know that this shot has already been done, this would actually be the third time. You say, well, Dave, why are you doing it over and over? Hey, I wasn't happy with it. And that's what the last month or so has really been devoted to, is just going through and taking shots that were not up to scratch, and realizing that as time has gone by, my skills have improved somewhat, and so why not go through and improve things, you know. Okay, so here I'm gonna leave the hand out because apparently when the ninjas were in there, I did not feel the need for that hand to be there, so I'm not gonna double think it. I'm gonna assume that I knew what I was doing when I saw that and decided to leave the hand out on that particular frame. But yeah, Zen has, you know, he has kind of longish hair actually. Not super long, but so it sticks out at the bottom like that. Okay. This I'm not sure about, so I'm just going to go like that and fill it. Whoops. Okay. B key is what I was trying to do. Yeah, he's all covered up with the ninja, that's right. I figured as much. So, that of course was interesting, wasn't it? I just turned Ninja 5's layer off and it didn't disappear. Yikes. Well, Krita has its quirks, just like OpenTunes has its quirks, and Blender has its quirks. Everybody's got their quirks. At the end of the day, it's a question of what do you enjoy doing? How are you doing the work in such a way that it's fun and relatively, you know, productive? So for me today, that means I'm using Krita more than OpenTunes and Blender. It's just a choice. I think if you devoted yourself 100% to any, you know, the mastery of any tool, then you're going to master that tool. And you'll find ways to do things. You'll find a way to get the job done. I mean, you could do all this in the Blender grease pencil. I've just had enough experience with it that's been, you know, let's just say underwhelming, especially in the ink and paint process, to cause me to just go, I just don't really feel like I want to use Blender for ink and paint. So I'm limiting my Blender work, at least with the anime stuff, to pencil tests and the occasional situation where you want to do a 3D camera move or some complex animation is required that Krita's obviously just not capable of, because you can't, you know, there's no moving, scaling, rotating in Krita. Now, technically there is, but only on a frame-by-frame basis with the free transform tool, which is better than nothing. For a lot of applications, it's all you need. I mean, think of it this way. If you're going to plan out your animation, if you're really going to plan and really try to do a good job, you probably can get down to the microscopic frame-by-frame level, and you're not going to lose much time by doing it that way. You're just not. Because as I mentioned earlier, all the rigging and all the setup that's required to be able to not do frame-by-frame animation takes time too, and comes with its own set of gotchas. It really truly does. And so again, for that reason, I'm not fixated on any particular tool that, you know, ostensibly is going to speed the job up. Now, if I had to, you know, you put a gun to my head and say make a choice, I'd probably be doing all this in OpenTunes, actually, just because the overall tools for mixing, you know, keyframe animation and 2D frame-by-frame animation. I mean, that's what it's designed for, and it's pretty good. It's, you know, it's got its bugs, but basically, so why am I doing this? Number one, in Krita, patching things and fixing things is really fast in Krita. You just add a new layer, you know, tweak over some patches, and then bake it down to the layer below. It's just really an interactive process that's kind of fun, you know. And that's really, really, really important. Whoops. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing this? You know? And I've learned that lesson 50 times over. I've spent the last year, while I've been learning animation and working on this thing, I have really, really, really fought hard to be able to settle on the one magic tool that's like the tool to end all tools that I can use for everything. And I've just found out over and over that they're all deficient in some ways. They all have their bugs. They all are going to let you down sometimes, and and if you learn to capitalize on what a given tool is best at and be content with limiting yourself to that, and understand that you're going to have to mix and match tools in order to get the job done, then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? What's the important thing here? And I realize the important thing is that I'm having fun. Because if I'm miserable because I'm fighting my tools, then I'm not going to want to do this. I'm not going to want to sit down and, because animation is disciplined work. Some people, like Richard Williams, say it's really, really hard. I don't actually think it's really, really hard. It is kind of time consuming, but I really don't think animation is that tough, actually. Especially when I stick to my methodology where I map things in very roughly. I do the sticks and balls and basically track. It's almost like motion tracking. It's like motion tracking without a motion tracker, where you're identifying things like a shoulder or an elbow or a chin, and you're saying, okay, where would that go from here? And what you find is if you animate those little tracking points and get them where they're supposed to be correctly, then all of a sudden the whole drawing is correct. Okay, so now I got a little decision here I need to make. I don't know if I want to leave that hand in there. Tell you what I'll do. I'll just do what one of my little adages is work from the known to the unknown. What I know for sure is that this art needs to be cleaned up. So let's clean up the art, as I'm doing right now, by erasing the erroneous lines. And then we'll decide later what we need to do with that hand, because it'll take literally 5 seconds to chop that hand out of there if we need to do so. Okay, so let's turn these guys back on. Hit the save key. Save early, save often. That's the rule. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is color in Ninja number 5, which I think I'll do on another session. So yeah, that looks really good. That looks really good. Yeah, so the only thing we need to change here is, and I'm going to solo this layer, because we really need to, we need to draw this in here as if we were seeing it all the time. Because the problem is once those guys drop, then we do see it. So I'm just going to use a big brush, and I'm not going to draw the hands. I'll leave that for another step. And I'm kind of trusting that I've got this pose correct. I hope I do. So I'm going to just go like that and do a little erasing here, because obviously that shoulder's like out of control. I mean, he's a big guy. Don't get me wrong. He's a big guy. But we will adjust more later once the other guys are in there. Yeah, so we're going to have to move his hands. So yeah, we might actually have to put some animation keys in there. I think that the thing to do here would be, let's erase this. We don't actually need this hand in there. If we see his hand, smash them together like that. Yes. So let's go here, and I'm just going to say, let's just kind of let that go down into space so that when the guys fall, Zen's arm will still be there. So basically we're going to Zen's final pose, and we're cheating because you're never going to see that final pose until those guys fall out of the way, at which point this pose will make sense. Any earlier it won't make sense. So, okay. I'm hitting, by the way, on my computer I've got it set up so that the tilde key does what you can see there, and it solos the layer. So okay, I'm going to stop here, take a break, and we'll come back and I imagine finish it up on the next video. So as you guys know, there will be more later.